Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about retro video games.
This video includes FMV violence, gore, discussion of sexual violence, and lots of spoilers. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to the Carnavash Estate, a picturesque mansion in a beautiful coastal town with a lot to offer. Relax with your morning cup of coffee.
Coffee.
Pet a cat. Or a dog if that's your thing. Get your fortune read. Get it on with your loving husband.
Alright.
Why not unintentionally release the spirit of a wife-killing madman who will haunt your house and possess your loving husband?
Wait, what?
Watch your husband turn into a monster. Have visions of the madman murdering his wife. And his next wife. And the next. Eventually, be horribly killed yourself. Enjoy your stay.
If you haven't already guessed, today I'm talking about Phantasmagoria.
Phantasmagoria was developed by Sierra and released on PC in 1995. It's a horror point-and-click adventure game that makes use of full-motion video and was designed and written by Roberta Williams, best known for the King's Quest series, along with a number of other early adventure games. You play Adrian, a writer who moves into a mysterious mansion with her husband, only to be terrorized by the spirits of its former occupants. The estate had previously belonged to magician Zoltan Carnavash, better known as Carno, who killed all his wives in brutal ways. The game's interface is exceedingly simple. When you mouse over something you can interact with, your cursor turns red. You don't have to worry about commands like look or use, there's just the one general interaction. You can collect items, which you'll need for a number of inventory puzzles, and examine them by dragging them to the eye icon on the right. As far as gameplay goes, there's not a whole lot to it. The majority of the game revolves around directing Adrian on where to go to explore the Carnavash mansion, the landmarks around it, and the nearby town. While the house and the surrounding areas are quite expansive, with a large number of unique environment screens, each has a very limited number of things you can interact with.
Oh, jeez.
I'm gonna be straight with you. This is not a very good game. Though Roberta Williams is one of the pioneers of the adventure genre, a genre which I love, this is not her best work from a narrative or a game design perspective.
Once you've released the evil spirit at the end of day one, you can guess exactly where the story is going. This is a very by-the-numbers haunted house story. The narrative and game length are padded out by adding a number of side characters, most of which go for cheap laughs, or attempt to anyway.
Help me! Oh, God.
Ma, I went and got that lady.
Well, get her up here then! I'm stuck!
One of the first people you meet is a lecherous real estate agent. Then you meet a homeless woman and her son, who seems to be inspired by Lenny Small. These two end up being the biggest supporting characters, with Harriet using her fortune-telling skills to tell you about what's going on, while her son Cyrus moves heavy objects for you. There's a huge discrepancy in tone caused by these comic relief characters. While this is meant to be a horror game, with a constant state of tension as Adrian discovers the horrifying history of the Carnavash estate, these characters completely detract from that, and as a result, the narrative experience is very uneven. There are some more serious supporting characters. One is the owner of an antique shop who tells you the history of your new home, and the other is an old acquaintance of Carno's who has some personal insights into his character and history. These scenes where other characters tell you what's going on are pure exposition. They're just movie scenes where you sit back and watch. There are no dialogue options and no interactions for the player.
This brings us to the game's biggest problem. There's just not that much to do, and what we can do takes forever.
Point-and-click adventure games of this era had a pretty specific formula. You direct your character around the screen and look at or interact with items in the environment. When you examine something, the character makes a quip to describe the item or explain some problem that has to be solved. Take Under a Killing Moon, an FMV game released 1 year before Phantasmagoria as an example. Tex examines the door and tells us that it's locked.
It's all locked up. The only way I'm gonna get inside is by using my innate cleverness or ingenuity, or maybe a key.
Within a couple seconds, we know what we have to do. However, in Phantasmagoria, Adrian says very little, making the game uncomfortably quiet. When we find a locked door in the foyer, she won't just take 2 seconds to say, locked. She'll take almost 30 seconds to try the handle a few times and look ponderously at the door before giving up and giving us control of her again. Almost every action you take in the game goes like this. Some movie bits take over 30 seconds as we watch Adrian climb over a log bridge or examine a secret passageway between rooms. Show, don't tell is usually good advice for a writer, but in this case, the showing takes way too long. One positive is that there is a skip button, so you don't have to watch every single long animation. That button got a lot of use. The game at times shows an excruciating amount of attention to detail. Each time we enter the pantry off the kitchen, the light is off and the trapdoor is closed. So every time we exit it, there's a scene showing Adrian closing the door and turning off the light. While this dedication to continuity in its environments is impressive in a way and makes things more realistic, watching Adrian close doors over and over again just isn't interesting. Now, I have a theory about why this game has so many overly long movie scenes. This was the first time Sierra had used a combination of live actors and computer-generated backgrounds. It was filmed in a newly built $1 million studio, they created brand new software to aid in filming and digitization, and hired a Hollywood director. So they wanted to make the most of it. And personally, I think they did a great job from a technical perspective, with the exception of this demon. Though there's occasional ghosting from the blue screen, Victoria Morsel, who plays Adrian, did a good job interacting with objects that weren't actually there, and the technical crew did a great job putting the live action and totally digital together. It looks fairly seamless, and really, it's no worse than what we saw 4 years later in The Phantom Menace. So, I can understand them wanting to show off a bit. However, concessions to gameplay need to be made, as these scenes take way longer than they need to, and we see them over and over again.
Now, there has to be some good things about the game, right?
The puzzles aren't ridiculous. That's a good thing. There's no combining maple syrup and cat fur to create a mustache and disguise yourself as another character who doesn't even have a mustache.
Yay, it worked.
Most problems are solved by using the correct object from your inventory. However, there's also a distinct lack of challenge. There just aren't very many puzzles, and most of the difficulty comes from the fact that the mansion is so large, and you don't always know where to find things or what order to do them in. There's a hint system, and the hints range from vague to oddly specific.
Go to the attic. You need the cameo brooch in the old trunk.
The acting? Well, it's passable for the most part. The exception to this is Don, who's a terrible overactor. It's very hard to take him seriously as your once loving husband who's been possessed by a demon and now poses a danger to you when he vacillates wildly between angry monster, petulant child, and laughing maniac. There are a couple recognizable faces in the game. Malcolm Wormshadow, who plays Carno's one-time apprentice, is played by Douglas Seal, who had roles in Amadeus and played Santa in Ernest Saves Christmas. Cyrus is played by Stephen W. Bailey, who went on to have an acting career after this. He plays the semi-regular character Joe the bartender in Grey's Anatomy, and currently has a recurring role in Scandal. Phantasmagoria caused quite a lot of controversy when it released. Between the quite graphic violence scene in the visions of Carno killing all the women in his life, and a rape scene mid-game, it makes something like Night Trap, which started a congressional shitstorm, look like child's play. Which, frankly, it was. The violence there is quite silly. Major retailer CompUSA refused to stock Phantasmagoria, though they never specifically said it was due to the content. Parents and religious groups called for a boycott of the game, and it was banned in Australia.
But let's be real, what isn't banned in Australia?
Of course, the controversy worked its magic, and the game went on to sell over 1 million copies, which is exceptional for a point-and-click adventure game, and became Sierra's best-selling game at that time. While the gore fits into the story, the rape scene is not very effective, which, given that this is a poorly written video game, isn't a surprise. The actor playing Don hams it up the entire time, which makes the tone that much stranger. Outside of these violent scenes, there aren't a whole lot of scares in Phantasmagoria. There's no sense of urgency, and there's never a feeling of real danger while you have control of Adrian until the very end of the game. Everything happens in a cutscene. Another issue I have is that Adrian isn't that likable of a protagonist. She's so oblivious.
Evil will walk once more.
Adrian is constantly told that her new house is bad news, but she just doesn't listen. Everyone she comes across reacts like, "Oh, you're from the Carnavash estate?" But she just shrugs it off with a sneer.
Some lack of common sense is to be expected in a horror story. After all, my very first action was to go into the dark and scary basement alone. But here, it goes too far. During her initial exploration of the house, Adrian lays down on the bed in Carno's old room, and this happens. So what happens next? We go into another room and find another bed to sit on. Why is this even an option at this point? Similarly, after a certain point in the game, most reflective surfaces you look at show you a terrible scene of someone being murdered. This doesn't stop Adrian from examining every mirror she comes across to make sure her hair looks good. Not that there's anything wrong with wanting to look good, but I think a little wariness is in order.
While narratively the game doesn't really work, Phantasmagoria's biggest sin is that it's boring. Every command we give to Adrian takes forever for her to execute and is done in an oddly silent manner. While I can appreciate the technical work that came into this game, in terms of actually playing it, it's just not that engaging. However, should you want to give it a try yourself, it is available on sites like GOG and Steam for about $10 or $15.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and if you want some more FMV goodness? Yeah, we'll go with that. Check out my reviews of Night Trap and Double Switch.